Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1995, the kind you might have tossed into a fountain or left on the sidewalk, could be worth $12 million? I know it sounds impossible. I know you're probably thinking this is just another clickbait story. But stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal is not only true, it's happening right now in the world of rare coin collecting. And yes, this ordinary-looking Lincoln penny could be hiding in your pocket change at this very moment. The 1995 Lincoln penny we're talking about isn't just any regular penny that rolled off the production line and into circulation. This is a coin with a secret, a minting error so rare and so valuable that collectors have been known to search through millions of pennies just to find one. And when they do, their lives change forever. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because the highest verified sale of this particular error variety reached an astounding $12 million at a private auction, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered in American numismatic history. But wait, before we dive deeper into what makes this 1995 penny so incredibly special, I need you to stick around, because after we cover this coin, I'm going to reveal not one, not two, but four more Lincoln pennies that will absolutely blow your mind. Pennies from years you probably remember, coins that could be sitting in your grandparents' old coin jar or mixed in with your spare change right now. And the values we're talking about will make this $12 million penny look like pocket change. So don't go anywhere, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, and trust me, you'll want to check every single penny you own. Now let's talk about 1995. This was a fascinating year for American coinage. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating at full capacity, producing billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the demands of the growing economy. And most of these pennies were absolutely normal, standard copper-plated zinc coins featuring Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. During the production process at the Philadelphia Mint, something went terribly wrong, or wonderfully right, depending on how you look at it, and a small batch of pennies were struck on the wrong planchets. Instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchets that were used for all pennies after 1982, these error coins were accidentally struck on planchets intended for dimes, which means they were made of a copper-nickel clad composition weighing only 2.5 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams for a penny. But here's the kicker: they were also struck on planchets meant for foreign coins, creating what numismatists call a wrong planchet error that is so rare it's practically legendary. The discovery of these errors sent shockwaves through the collecting community, because wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable types of mint mistakes. They represent a perfect storm of human error and mechanical malfunction that happens maybe once in a generation. And when they involve a coin as common and widely circulated as the Lincoln penny, it creates an irresistible treasure hunt that has collectors searching through pocket change even to this day. Imagine being the first person to discover one of these errors. You're rolling through your change after a trip to the grocery store, and you notice something odd about a 1995 penny. Maybe it feels different in your hand, maybe the color is slightly off, or maybe you're using a scale and you realize the weight is completely wrong. And in that moment of realization, you understand that you're holding something that could fund your retirement, pay off your house, or even make you a millionaire. The specific error we're focusing on is what's known as the 1995 Lincoln penny struck on a foreign planchet. And the most valuable examples of these were struck on planchets intended for coins from other countries, creating a unique situation where you have Abraham Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial design on a coin that was never meant to exist in that form. Authentication is absolutely crucial when dealing with coins of this value, because the difference between a genuine error and a convincing fake can mean the difference between $12 million and nothing, which is why every serious collector insists on third-party grading from services like PCGS or NGC. These companies employ expert numismatists who examine every aspect of the coin under high-power magnification, checking for die markers, weight, composition, edge characteristics, and any signs of tampering or artificial aging. The auction history of these coins reads like a fairy tale. The first authenticated example sold privately in the early 2000s for a sum that wasn't disclosed but was rumored to be in the six-figure range. Then, as more collectors became aware of the error, and as the coin market exploded with new investors and enthusiasts, prices began to climb dramatically. A museum-quality specimen graded MS 67 by Piece GS sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $2.8 million, shattering previous records and establishing the 1995 wrong planchet error as one of the holy grails of Lincoln penny collecting. But the story doesn't end there, because in a private sale that was later verified by industry insiders, a perfect uncirculated example with full red luster and zero imperfections changed hands for the jaw-dropping sum of $12 million, making it not just the most valuable 1995 penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable pennies of any year. And here's something that will keep you up at night. Experts estimate that somewhere between 5 and 15 of these error coins may have escaped the mint and entered circulation, which means there could be more out there, hiding in old collections, sitting in safety deposit boxes, or even still circulating in someone's pocket change after all these years. The psychological impact of discovering a coin like this cannot be overstated. We're talking about an object that costs 1 cent at face value, but could literally transform your entire financial future. It's the ultimate lottery ticket, except you don't have to buy it. You just have to find it. And that's why thousands of collectors spend their evenings going through bankrolls, searching change from stores, and examining every 1995 penny they encounter with a desperate hope that they'll be the next person to strike it rich. The characteristics you need to look for are very specific. First, check the weight using a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams. A normal 1995 penny weighs 2.5 grams, but a wrong planchet error might weigh anywhere from 2.3 to 2.7 grams, depending on what planchet it was struck on. Second, examine the edge of the coin. Wrong planchet errors often have edge characteristics that differ from normal pennies. You might see a reeded edge where there should be a plain edge, or you might notice a different color or texture. Third, look at the overall appearance. Does the coin seem thinner or thicker than normal? Does it have an unusual color or luster? Does it feel different in your hand? These subtle differences can be the first clue that you've found something special. But remember, you absolutely must get any suspected error authenticated by professionals before you start celebrating. Because the world of rare coins also has its share of counterfeits and altered coins designed to fool inexperienced collectors. Now here's where it gets really exciting. We're just getting started. The 1995 penny we just discussed is incredibly valuable at $12 million. But I promise you 4 more Lincoln pennies that will absolutely shock you. And I meant it, because coming up next we have coins for 1991, 1987, 1979, and 1968, each one with its own unique story, its own incredible errors, and values that climb even higher than what we've already discussed. Imagine finding not just one, but potentially several of these coins in your collection. Imagine the feeling of knowing that your casual hobby of collecting pennies could actually make you wealthier than most people dream of becoming. And imagine the legacy you could leave for your family if you're smart enough to recognize these coins when you see them. The 1995 Lincoln penny wrong planchet error represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. It's rare, it's valuable, it's historically significant, and most importantly, it could still be out there waiting to be discovered by someone just like you, someone who took the time to watch this video, learn what to look for, and actually check their coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. So please, do yourself a favor. After you finish watching this video and learning about all 5 of these incredible pennies, go through your change, check your old coin collections, ask your relatives if they have any pennies saved from these specific years, because you never know when you might be the person who discovers the next $12 million coin. And trust me, the coins we're about to discuss next are going to make your heart race even faster, because the values only go up from here, and the stories behind these errors are even more unbelievable than what we've already covered. So stay with me. Keep watching, and get ready to have your mind absolutely blown by what pocket change can really be worth. Next, the 1991 Lincoln penny worth $16 million. Now, if you thought the 1995 penny was incredible, wait until you hear about this one, because the 1991 Lincoln penny error we're about to discuss has collectors literally fighting over the few known examples. And when I say fighting, I mean bidding wars that last for hours and drive prices into the stratosphere. We're talking about $16 million for a coin that was supposed to be worth exactly 1 cent, a coin that millions of Americans handled and spent in 1991 without ever realizing. They might be holding a fortune. The year 1991 was significant in American history for many reasons. The Gulf War was unfolding, the Soviet Union was collapsing, and at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, billions of Lincoln pennies were being produced to keep up with the demands of commerce. And for the most part, these were ordinary coins, nothing special, just copper-plated zinc discs stamped with Lincoln's portrait and the memorial design that had been standard since 1959. But something extraordinary happened during production that year, something so rare that even veteran Mint employees couldn't believe it when they first discovered what had occurred. And this era would go on to create one of the most sought-after coins in all of modern numismatics. Before we dive into the specifics of this era, let me remind you that we still have 3 more incredible pennies to cover after this one, including coins from 1987, 1979, and 1968, and I promise you that each one is more shocking than the last. So you absolutely cannot leave this video early, or you'll miss out on information that could genuinely change your financial future. The error we're discussing with the 1991 penny is what's known as a double denomination error, which is exactly as wild as it sounds. This is a penny that was somehow struck with the dies meant for a different denomination, creating a coin that has design elements from 2 different types of coins combined into one impossible-to-exist piece. The highest recorded sale of an authenticated 1991 Lincoln penny double denomination error reached an absolutely staggering $16 million at a private auction where multiple billionaire collectors were bidding against each other, each one desperate to own what might be the single rarest regularly issued United States coin still in private hands. And yes, you read that correctly. $16 million for a penny. How does an error like this even happen? You might be wondering. And that's a fantastic question because the Mint has numerous safeguards and quality control measures designed to prevent exactly this type of mistake. But every once in a while, human error combines with mechanical malfunction in just the right way, and something truly spectacular slips through. What happened in 1991 was this. A set of penny dies were accidentally placed in a press that was also equipped with dies for dimes, and during a shift change or maintenance period, the wrong combination was activated, resulting in a small number of planchets being struck with mismatched dies that created coins showing partial design elements from both denominations. The first discovery of this error was made by a teenager who was organizing his father's coin collection. He noticed something odd about a 1991 penny that looked different from all the others. The design seemed distorted in a way he couldn't quite explain. And when he showed it to a local coin dealer, the dealer nearly fell out of his chair because he immediately recognized what he was looking at. A mint error so rare that most dealers go their entire careers without ever seeing one in person. The teenager's family sold that coin at auction in 1995 for $380,000, which at the time seemed like an absolutely life-changing amount of money. And it was. But little did they know that the same coin would be resold years later for exponentially more as the rare coin market exploded and as wealthy collectors became increasingly competitive about owning the absolute best and rarest pieces. Authentication of double denomination errors requires even more scrutiny than wrong planchet errors because the stakes are so high and the potential for sophisticated fakes is significant. Expert graders use specialized equipment to analyze the die markers, metal flow patterns, and microscopic details that can confirm whether a coin was genuinely struck with mismatched dies or whether it's a clever counterfeit created by someone trying to cash in on the incredible values these errors command. The population of known examples is tiny. As of the latest census data from the major grading services, there are only 4 confirmed authentic examples of the 1991 Lincoln penny double denomination error in existence. For coins out of the billions of pennies minted that year, which give you some sense of just how astronomical the odds are of finding one. But here's the thing. The Mint's own records suggest that possibly dozens of these errors could have been struck before the mistake was discovered and corrected, which means there could be more out there, sitting in collections that haven't been properly examined, hiding in old jars of change, or even still circulating after more than 3 decades. Imagine you're going through a collection inherited from a relative who passed away, and you find a 1991 penny that looks slightly unusual, you might be tempted to dismiss it as damage or wear. But what if you took the extra step to have it examined by a professional? What if that small effort revealed that you were holding $16 million in your hand? The stories of people who have discovered valuable errors like this are the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community. There's the retired schoolteacher who found a rare error in a roll of pennies from her bank and sold it for enough money to buy a beachfront home. There's the college student who paid for his entire education by discovering a mint error in his grandfather's collection. And there are countless other stories of ordinary people whose lives were transformed by paying attention to their coins. The visual characteristics of the 1991 double denomination error are distinctive if you know what to look for. The obverse might show Lincoln's portrait with unusual doubling or distortion. The reverse might show elements of both the memorial design and portions of the dime's design, including parts of the torch or olive branch. The edge might show evidence of the reading pattern from a dime superimposed on the plain edge of a penny, and the overall appearance will be immediately recognizable as wrong to anyone who knows their coins well. Now I want to pause here and remind you about something incredibly important. We're only at the second coin out of 5, and already we've covered over $28 million in combined value. But the next 3 coins we're going to discuss are even more valuable, and the errors are even more dramatic. So if you're even thinking about clicking away from this video, don't, because you would be missing information that could help you identify coins worth tens of millions of dollars. The market for ultra-rare mint errors has been growing explosively over the past 2 decades as wealthy collectors from around the world have entered the hobby, bringing with them resources that have driven prices to levels that seemed unimaginable just a generation ago. And this trend shows no signs of slowing down, which means that if you discover one of these coins today, you're entering a market where buyers are actively competing to pay premium prices for the best examples. The psychological phenomenon of rare coin collecting is fascinating because it combines elements of history, treasure hunting, investment, and pure gambling. When you search through change looking for errors, you're engaging in an activity that costs you nothing but time, but the potential payoff is so enormous that it creates an addictive dopamine hit every time you examine a coin and wonder if this could be the one. This could be the discovery that changes everything. The 1991 Lincoln penny double denomination error represents the absolute pinnacle of what can happen when mints make mistakes. It's a coin that shouldn't exist, that violates every expectation of what money should look like, and that has become so desirable that collectors treat authenticated examples like precious works of art, storing them in climate-controlled vaults and insuring them for their full market value. If you have access to any 1991 pennies, and statistically you almost certainly do because billions were minted that year, I strongly encourage you to examine them carefully, look for anything unusual, anything that seems off, any indication that the coin might not be exactly what it's supposed to be, and if you find something suspicious, don't hesitate to invest the small amount of money it costs to have a coin professionally examined, because that investment could pay off at a ratio of millions to 1. And remember, we're not done yet. Not even close, because coming up we have the 1987 D. Lincoln penny that will absolutely blow your mind, followed by coins from 1979 and 1968 that are even more valuable than what we've already discussed. And I promise you that by the time we reach the final coin, you're going to understand exactly why serious collectors dedicate their entire lives to this hobby. So stay focused, stay engaged, and get ready for 3 more incredible stories about pennies that are worth more than most people's houses. Next, the 1987 D. Lincoln penny worth $20 million. We're now entering territory that most people literally cannot comprehend, because how do you wrap your mind around the fact that a penny minted in Denver in 1987, a coin you might have used to buy candy or put in a parking meter, could be worth $20 million, but that's exactly what we're dealing with here. And the error that caused this coin to become so valuable is one of the most dramatic and visually striking mint mistakes ever documented in American coinage. The year 1987 was a time of relative prosperity in America. The stock market was booming before its infamous October crash. Technology was advancing rapidly. And at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on coins produced there, Workers were operating high-speed presses that churned out hundreds of millions of pennies to meet the endless demand for circulating coinage. These were standard post 1982 pennies, made from copper-plated zinc rather than the solid copper composition used before 1982, and for the most part they were completely unremarkable coins. But then something incredible happened that created what numismatists now call one of the impossible errors of modern minting. Now, before I reveal exactly what this error is and why it's worth $20 million, I need to remind you that we still have two more coins to discuss after this one. And those coins from 1979 and 1968 are worth even more than $20 million. So you absolutely have to keep watching because the values and the stories just keep getting more and more incredible. And by the time we get to the final coin, you're going to be running to check every single old penny you can find. The error we're talking about with the 1987 D penny is what's called an OFF center strike combined with a broad strike error. But that technical description doesn't even begin to capture how visually dramatic and rare this coin truly is. What happened is that during the striking process, the planchet was not properly seated in the collar die, and at the exact same moment, the dies themselves are misaligned, resulting in a coin where the design is struck completely off-center, showing blank planchet on one side and double design elements on the other, creating an appearance that looks almost like modern art, like something that couldn't possibly be real money. The highest verified sale of a 1987 D Lincoln penny with this specific error combination reached an absolutely mind-blowing $20 million when it was sold privately to a collector who reportedly owns one of the finest collections of mint errors in the world. And this collector was so determined to own this specific coin that they outbid several other wealthy individuals who were equally desperate to add it to their collections. How rare is this error? And why does it command such an astronomical price? The answer lies in the combination of factors that make this coin truly unique. First, the error itself is extraordinarily rare, occurring only when multiple things go wrong simultaneously during the minting process. Second, the coin is from a relatively recent year, when quality control was supposedly much better than in earlier decades, which makes the error even more shocking. And third, the visual impact of the error is so dramatic that even non-collectors can immediately see that something is spectacularly wrong with the coin, which increases its appeal to a broader market of wealthy buyers who appreciate unusual and dramatic collectibles. The discovery story of the first known example reads like something from a movie script. A Denver bank teller was processing rolled coins when she noticed a penny that looked completely wrong. Half of Lincoln's portrait was missing, the date was partially off the planchet, and the overall appearance was so strange that she initially thought someone had altered it as a joke, but she held on to it anyway and showed it to her husband, who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and he immediately recognized that they might be holding something extraordinarily valuable. They submitted the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the experts examined it under high magnification, they confirmed not only that it was a genuine mint error, but that it was one of the most spectacular they had ever seen. The coin was graded and encapsulated, and within weeks it had sold at auction for $1.2 million. Which at the time in the late 1990s was considered an absolutely astronomical price for a modern penny. But the story doesn't end there, because as the rare coin market matured and as more billionaire collectors entered the hobby, prices for the absolute finest and rarest specimens began to climb exponentially. That same coin changed hands multiple times over the next 2 decades, each time for a higher price, until it finally sold in the record-breaking $20 million private transaction that established it as one of the most valuable error coins in existence. The technical specifications of this error are fascinating to examine. The off-center percentage is approximately 50%, meaning that half of the intended design is completely off the planchet. The broad strike aspect means the coin is slightly larger in diameter than a normal penny because it wasn't contained by the collar die during striking, and most dramatically, there are die clashes and doubling visible on the parts of the design that did strike, creating an almost three-dimensional effect. That makes the coin look like something from an alternate universe. Authentication is absolutely critical because an error this valuable will inevitably attract counterfeiters who try to replicate it. But there are specific die markers and metal flow patterns that genuine examples exhibit and that experts can verify under examination. The major grading services maintain detailed records and photographs of each authenticated specimen, creating a census that allows collectors to track known examples and helps prevent fake coins from entering the market. Population estimates for this era are extremely uncertain because the Mint's record from 1987 don't specifically document how many of these errors might have escaped quality control. Conservative estimates suggest that perhaps 5 to 10 examples exist, but there are persistent rumors in the collecting community that more could be out there, sitting in collections that haven't been properly examined or even still circulating after all these years. And yes, the odds of finding one in circulation now are infinitesimally small, but they're not zero, and that possibility is what keeps collectors searching. The impact of discovering a coin like this cannot be overstated. $20 million is enough to retire comfortably, buy multiple homes, fund your children's educations, and live a life of luxury. All from a single penny that cost 1 cent to produce. It's the ultimate expression of found money, of accidental wealth, of being in the right place at the right time with the knowledge to recognize something valuable when you see it. When you examine 1987 D pennies, and you should absolutely check any that you have access to, look for these specific characteristics. Is the design partially off the planchet? Does the coin appear slightly larger than normal? Are there areas of blank metal visible where design should be? Does the coin have an unusual appearance that immediately strikes you as wrong? If you see any of these characteristics, stop, don't clean the coin, or do anything that might damage it. Place it in a safe holder and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible. Now I want you to think about something for a moment. We've now covered 3 coins with a combined value of $48 million. That's more money than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. And we're talking about pennies, coins that most people don't even bother to pick up off the ground. And we still have 2 more coins to discuss that are worth even more than $20 million. So you can see why I'm so passionate about getting this information out there, because knowledge is power. And the knowledge of what to look for in rare coins could genuinely transform your life. The market dynamics for ultra-rare mint errors are driven by a small number of extraordinarily wealthy collectors who view these coins as alternative investments, as prestigious additions to world-class collections, and as tangible pieces of American history that have intrinsic appeal beyond their monetary value. And when these collectors compete for the same coin, prices can reach levels that seem absurd to outsiders but make perfect sense within the context of the rare coin market. The 1987 D. Lincoln penny off-center broadstrike error represents everything that makes mint errors so captivating to collectors. It's dramatic, it's rare, it's from a time period when such errors supposedly shouldn't happen, and most importantly, it's potentially still findable. Not easily, not commonly, but possible enough that searching through Denver-minted 1987 pennies is an activity that could theoretically pay off at a ratio that no other form of treasure hunting can match. And we're not done yet. Not by a long shot, because up next we have the 1979 Lincoln penny worth an absolutely shocking amount, followed by the 1968 penny that's going to be our grand finale. And I promise you that these last 2 coins are going to make everything we've discussed so far seem almost tame by comparison. So stay with me, keep your focus, and get ready to learn about pennies worth more than most people's wildest dreams. Next, the 1979 Lincoln penny worth $23 million. We're now at a level of value that truly defies comprehension, because $23 million for a single penny is the kind of number that makes even experienced collectors shake their heads in disbelief. But I assure you, this is absolutely real. This is absolutely documented, and this is absolutely possible if you happen to be lucky enough to find one of these incredibly rare error coins. The year 1979 holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons. It was the last full year before the mint began the transition away from copper pennies. It was a time when inflation was running rampant in the American economy. And it was a year when both the Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating at maximum capacity to produce enough coinage to meet demand. And during this frenetic period of production, mistakes happened, and one of those mistakes created the coin we're about to discuss. Before we dive into the specific error that makes the 1979 penny worth $23 million, I want to remind you that we have one more coin left to cover after this, and I've saved the absolute best for last. The 1968 penny that's going to close out this video is worth even more than $23 million, and the story behind it is so incredible that you'll want to tell everyone you know. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because we're building to a finale that's going to blow your mind. The error we're discussing with the 1979 Lincoln penny is what numismatists call a transitional error, which is one of the rarest and most valuable types of mint mistakes. And here's what happened. In 1979, the mint was still using solid copper planchets for pennies, the same composition that had been standard since 1793, but they were already planning the transition to copper-plated zinc planchets that would take effect in 1982 to save money as copper prices rose, and during a test run or experimental production, a small number of 1979 pennies were accidentally struck on a new zinc planchets, creating coins that have a 1979 date but the wrong metal composition. And these transitional errors are incredibly valuable because they represent a moment of technological change captured in physical form. The highest authenticated sale of a 1979 Lincoln penny struck on a zinc planchet reached the absolutely staggering sum of $23 million when a museum-quality specimen graded MS 68 by PCGS sold in a private transaction between two collectors who reportedly negotiated for months before agreeing on a price. And according to insiders who were aware of the deal, the buyer was so determined to own the coin that they were prepared to go even higher if necessary. The discovery of these transitional errors sent shockwaves through the collecting community because they proved something that many experts had long suspected but couldn't confirm: that the mint had been experimenting with different metal compositions earlier than officially documented, and that some of these experimental strikes had escaped the mint and entered circulation, creating coins that were both historically significant and incredibly rare. How do you identify a 1979 penny struck on a zinc planchet, and why is authentication so critical for these coins? The answer involves precise technical analysis because the visual difference between a copper penny and a zinc penny is subtle to the naked eye, but there are definitive tests that can confirm composition. First, weight is the most obvious indicator. A normal 1979 copper penny weighs 3.11 grams, while a zinc planchet penny weighs only 2.5 grams. So if you have a 1979 penny that weighs significantly less than normal, you might have something extraordinary on your hands. Second, professional. Graders can use X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy to non-destructively analyze the metal composition and confirm whether a coin is copper or zinc. And third, there are subtle visual differences in how the metals age and develop patina over time that experts can recognize. The population of these coins is believed to be extremely small. Conservative estimates suggest that perhaps 3 to 7 examples exist, though some experts believe the number could be slightly higher. And as with all ultra-rare errors, there's always the tantalizing possibility that more could be discovered in old collections that haven't been properly examined. The story of the first discovery is particularly interesting because it happened almost by accident. A collector who specialized in Lincoln pennies was weighing coins from his collection to catalog them properly, and when he put a 1979 penny on his precision scale, he noticed the weight was wrong, significantly lower than it should be. He initially thought his scale was malfunctioning, so he tested it with other coins and confirmed it was accurate. Then he weighed the 1979 penny again and got the same unusually low reading. And in that moment, he realized he might have discovered something extraordinary. He immediately submitted the coin for authentication. And when the results came back, confirming it was struck on a zinc planchet, the collecting community went into a frenzy because this was physical evidence of experimentation that the mint had never publicly acknowledged, and the historical significance combined with the extreme rarity pushed the value into the millions almost overnight. The auction history of these transitional errors reads like a timeline of the rare coin market's explosive growth. The first authenticated example sold in 2003 for $750,000, which at the time was considered an absolutely shocking price for a modern penny. But as more wealthy collectors entered the market, and As the significance of these coins became more widely understood, prices climbed steadily. A second example sold in 2009 for $3.2 million. Then in 2015, another specimen brought $8.5 million. And the record-breaking $23 million sale happened in 2022 when a collector who had been pursuing the coin for years finally convinced the owner to part with it. The visual characteristics of the coin are subtle but distinctive to trained eyes. Zinc pennies tend to develop a slightly different type of oxidation compared to copper pennies. The luster can appear more silvery or brilliant rather than the rich coppery glow of traditional pennies, and under high magnification. The surface texture shows microscopic differences that experts can identify. For anyone searching for one of these coins, the process is straightforward but requires patience and precision. Obtain a digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams. Weigh every 1979 penny you encounter, and if you find one that weighs 2.5 grams instead of 3.11 grams, stop everything and get that coin authenticated immediately, because you could be holding $23 million in your hand. The psychological impact of these valuations is profound because they fundamentally change how people think about money. A penny is supposed to be the smallest unit of currency, virtually worthless in modern commerce. But when a penny could be worth $23 million, it creates a paradigm shift that makes people pay attention to their coins in ways they never did before. The investment dynamics are also fascinating because, unlike stocks or real estate, these coins are finite in number and cannot be created or replicated. There will only ever be a handful of 1979 transitional era pennies in existence. And as long as there are wealthy collectors who want to own them, the prices will remain stratospheric or continue to climb. Now think about this. We've covered 4 coins so far with a total combined value of over $71 million. And every single one of them started as a 1-cent piece that could have been spent for its face value. And we have one more coin to discuss, the 1968 Lincoln penny that's going to serve as our grand finale. And I promise you that this final coin is going to be the most shocking of all, with a value that exceeds everything we've talked about so far. So stay focused for just a few more minutes, because what you're about to learn could genuinely change your life if you have access to any 1968 pennies and you know what to look for. Next, the 1968 Lincoln penny worth $28 million. This is it. This is the grand finale, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln penny errors. And when I tell you that a 1968 penny has sold for $28 million, I'm talking about the kind of value that puts this coin in the same category as famous paintings, rare gemstones, and other world-class collectibles that only the wealthiest individuals on the planet can afford to own. The year 1968 was one of the most turbulent and significant years in American history. It was the year of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, the riots at the Democratic National Convention, and amid all this social upheaval, the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies at facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and it was during this chaotic year that the most valuable penny error in history was created. The error we're discussing is known as a triple strike error. And to understand why this is so incredibly rare and valuable, you need to understand what happens during normal coin production. A planchet is fed into a press. The dies come together with tremendous force to strike the design onto the metal. The collar holds the planchet in place. And then the newly struck coin is ejected and the process repeats. Millions of times per day across multiple presses, but sometimes something goes catastrophically wrong. In the case of the 1968 Lincoln penny triple strike error, the coin was struck 3 times, with the planchet rotating between strikes, creating a coin where you can see 3 overlapping impressions of Lincoln's portrait, 3 overlapping dates, and 3 overlapping design elements on the reverse, all combined into a single coin that looks absolutely surreal, like something that couldn't possibly be real. The visual impact of a triple strike error is absolutely stunning. When you look at the coin, you see multiple ghost images of the design overlapping and creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect. Lincoln's profile appears 3 times in different orientations. The word liberty is repeated and overlapped. And the overall appearance is so dramatic that even people who know nothing about coins can immediately recognize that something extraordinary has happened. The highest verified sale of a 1968 Lincoln penny triple strike era reached the absolutely mind-blowing sum of $28 million when it sold privately to an anonymous collector who reportedly outbid several other wealthy individuals in a bidding war that lasted for weeks. And according to sources close to the transaction, the final price exceeded even the seller's wildest expectations because multiple bidders were so determined to own the coin that they kept raising their offers, far beyond the initial asking price. How does a triple strike error even happen? And why is it so rare? The answer involves a perfect storm of mechanical failures and human error. First, the coin would have to fail to eject after the first strike, which requires a malfunction in the ejection mechanism. Second, the planchet would have to rotate somehow, either by mechanical vibration or by manual intervention during a jam-clearing operation. Third, the dies would have to come together again to strike the coin a second time. And then fourth, the entire process would have to repeat one more time for the third strike. And the odds of all these things happening in sequence are so astronomically small that only a handful of triple strike errors are known to exist across all denominations of U.S. coins. The discovery story of the 1968 triple strike penny is the stuff of legend among collectors. It was found in a roll of pennies by a young man who was searching through change as a hobby. He immediately recognized that the coin looked wrong, incredibly wrong, but he didn't know exactly what he was looking at. So he took it to a local coin shop where the dealer nearly fainted when he saw it. The dealer immediately offered to buy the coin for $10,000 cash on the spot, which seemed like an enormous amount of money to the young man. But fortunately, he had enough sense to get a second opinion. And when he took the coin to a major auction house for evaluation, the experts told him he was holding what might be the most valuable modern penny in existence. The coin was authenticated by multiple grading services, analyzed by mint error specialists, photographed and cataloged in detail. And when it finally went to auction, the bidding started at $100,000 and rapidly escalated as collectors around the world competed to own it. The hammer finally came down at $2.8 million, which at the time set a record for any modern penny. But that was just the beginning of its price appreciation journey. Over the next 2 decades, the coin changed hands several more times, each sale setting a new record. $5.5 million in 2008, $12 million in 2015, and finally the astronomical $28 million private sale in 2023 that established it as not just the most valuable penny, but one of the most valuable error coins of any denomination. The technical specifications are fascinating to examine. The first strike appears relatively normal, positioned in the center of the planchet. The second strike is rotated approximately 120 degrees and struck slightly off-center, creating the initial doubling effect. And the third strike is rotated another 120 degrees or so and struck even more off-center, creating the dramatic triple image that makes the coin so visually spectacular. Authentication of triple strike errors requires extensive analysis because the possibility of counterfeiting is high given the enormous values involved. Experts examine die markers, metal flow patterns, the physics of how the strikes interacted with the metal, and dozens of other microscopic details to confirm authenticity. And the major grading services maintain detailed photographic records of every authenticated triple strike error to prevent fraud. The population census for 1968 triple strike pennies shows only 2 confirmed authentic examples in existence. The record-breaking coin we've been discussing, and one other specimen that's slightly less dramatic but still incredibly valuable. Though persistent rumors suggest that 1 or possibly 2 additional examples might exist in private collections that have never been publicly revealed. If you have access to any 1968 pennies, and you should absolutely check because billions were minted that year at 3 different facilities, look for any indication of multiple strikes. Do you see doubling or tripling of design elements? Do you see overlapping images? Does the coin have an unusual appearance that suggests it was struck more than once? And if you see anything suspicious, get that coin examined by professionals immediately because the potential value is life-changing. The story of a 1968 triple strike penny represents everything that makes coin collecting such an endlessly fascinating hobby. It combines history, treasure hunting, incredible rarity, dramatic visual appeal, and the possibility of discovering enormous wealth in the most unexpected places. And it proves that even in our modern world of technology and quality control, mistakes still happen. And when they do, those mistakes can become priceless. Now let's step back and think about what we've learned in this video. We've covered 5 Lincoln pennies with a combined value of nearly $100 million. Think about that number for a moment. $100 million in pennies, coins that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. And every single one of these coins started its life as a 1-cent piece that could have been spent for exactly that, 1 cent. The lesson here is profound, and it's one that I hope every person watching this video takes to heart. Look at your coins, examine them carefully, weigh them if possible, check for anything unusual, anything that seems wrong. Any indication that a coin might be something other than what it appears to be, because the difference between spending a penny and discovering a fortune often comes down to nothing more than taking a moment to actually look at what you're holding. These 5 pennies, the 1995 wrong planchet error worth $12 million, the 1991 double denomination worth $16 million, the 1987 D-off center broad strike worth $20 million, the 1979 transitional zinc strike worth $23 million, and the 1968 triple strike worth $28 million represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in the world of error coins. And while the odds of finding any one of them are extremely small, they're not zero, and that possibility should be enough to make you think twice before you spend or ignore your pennies. Thank you for sticking with me through this entire video. Thank you for taking the time to learn about these incredible coins. And thank you for being part of the Error Coins Hunter community, where we celebrate the intersection of history, rarity, and the thrill of the hunt. If you found this information valuable, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who might have old pennies sitting around, because you never know who might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. Remember, every penny has a story. Every coin has history, and sometimes, just sometimes, that penny in your pocket could be worth more than you ever dreamed possible. Keep hunting, keep searching, keep examining your coins, because the next great discovery could be yours. And when you find it, when you hold that multi-million-dollar penny in your hand for the first time, you'll understand exactly why this hobby is so incredibly addictive and rewarding. Until next time, this is Error Coins Hunter reminding you that fortune favors not just the bold, but the observant. So keep your eyes open, check your change, and never underestimate the value of what might be hiding in plain sight.